High is Thursday, September 5th, and we're tracking Super Typhoon Yagi in the South China Sea. The system has continued to intensify very significantly over the past several hours, over the nighttime hours, and we're now seeing the system attain Super Typhoon intensity as the sun rises over the eye. Now, the eye has not fully cleared out. You can see that if I pause this at the end, it's still murky in the middle. We have some signs of the ocean surface below, but it's not fully cleared out. Now, it is still attempting to clear out the eye fully, and I'd say we'll probably still get that eye to fully clear before any disruption happens to the inner core structure within it. We also have this Central Night's Overcast, the CDO, which is the thunderstorms that surrounds the eye. I kind of outlined it badly there, but it is symmetric surrounding it, and it's formidable, showing that this is the classic mature typhoon structure. Now, there are some issues that the system will have to face over the next day as it makes its way towards landfall. There is a little bit of wind shear impacting it. If you look on the north side, we don't have much convection going on, especially compared to the south side. As you can see, there's a little bit of northerly shear. These thunderstorms that are blowing up here north of the storm, they're getting their tops blown towards the storm. And you can see this as well on water vapor imagery here with those convective bursts there, again moving towards the south. Now, this is attributed by a weak area of high pressure. You really can't tell it's here on water vapor imagery, but there is a weak high further west, bringing that northerly shear. Now, this high is forecast to weaken over the day today, so the shear is not likely to really make big of an impact on the storm. It's not really making a big impact right now. It's fairly weak shear overall, and I wouldn't anticipate this to have really many fluctuations on intensity. What I do think will have a more significant fluctuation is a potential eye wall replacement cycle that could be taking place, or at least getting close to taking place, this morning. You can see on this microwave pass that was several hours ago, we have the very strong inner eye wall here in the reds and blacks surrounding this inner core. So that's where the super typhoon force winds are. And you can see this outer band that's getting pretty strong that was about 50% surrounding this inner eye. Now, throughout this process, what will happen is this band will fully close off surrounding the inner core, and this inner core will be choked off in a way, so it will weaken, and once this inner core dies out, the outer eye wall will contract, it will shrink, become the new eye, and what happens as a result of this process is the top winds will come down a little bit. But the reason it does is because the storm gets larger within that process, so the winds get over more of an expansive area, and as a result, impacts are more widespread, and storm surge can also be much higher as a result. And we don't see much signs right now, at least from what I can tell on satellite imagery, that we're in the onset of an eye wall replacement cycle, but you might be able to pick out some details in this. I want to go back to this frame here in the infrared. You can see this here is probably the inner eye wall, so fairly strong. But we have this other band which has some stronger convective bursts on the southwestern and western side of the storm. This lines up with where it was on the microwave imagery that I just showed you. And if I had to guess, this is that secondary eye wall trying to still form around it. Now, exactly how much is it surrounding this? Not too sure. We haven't had a microwave pass since this one earlier in the nighttime hours. Hopefully we'll get one in the next few hours to get a better picture. But I know that the replacement cycle may seem like a good thing. The top winds come down, but they're really not a good thing because the impacts, like I said, get more widespread. Storm surge impacts can be worsened, and you also can get more widespread rainfall as well. And usually, once the system comes out of the replacement cycle, which these cycles take about a day, but they can sometimes take less time than that. We'll see how it plays out here with Yagi. But usually what happens is a storm could come right back up to the intensity it was when the cycle began. And if the system plays its cards right, it could do this replacement cycle, then intensify again right towards landfall. Now we're looking right now towards a landfall in about 24 hours. I'm recording this about 8 a.m. local time. And right now models are showing landfall around 8 a.m. tomorrow. And 8 or 9 a.m., of course, plus minus a few hours with some minor wobbles that may happen with a storm, but that's the general time frame that we're looking for landfall here. Hopefully, we can get the system significantly disrupted. Perhaps something happens in a replacement cycle, the shear gets to it, or dry air gets to it. Do I think that's overly likely? Unfortunately not, but still, we can hope. Hope for the best, of course, as the system comes towards landfall. Now, in terms of track, we have gotten a little bit more certainty on where the system is forecast to make landfall. You can see that if you look, and I'll go into the large scale view for this, you can see that we're just east of, say, central Hainan. So this system is still gaining latitude. So solutions that, say, had it coming into central Hainan are trending a little bit more north today as a result. And this system is now likely to make landfall somewhere in here. And I've got Google Maps open so I can try and say some of these areas that are where the landfall spot is forecast to be. If I mispronounce any of these, I do apologize. But generally, we're looking in the vicinity of Zhanjiang in here, west of Hong Kong in China. That's where models are really honing in on landfall. You can see this in the track guidance with still a little bit of spread on exactly where it makes landfall, but in that vicinity, we're looking towards landfall here. And of course, like I said, there's still potential for some wobbles. And this is important for areas like northern Hainan or areas closer to Hong Kong. We are talking about a landfall being further away from you all compared to, say, yesterday's projection from some models. But keep in mind, there's still some wobbling that could occur. And you can see in these track guidance from these models, if the system comes a little bit further north here, you could get more impacts here closer to Hong Kong. And inversely, if it comes further south, you could have a track that gets it closer to northern Hainan. In fact, we have some models like the European still showing it coming into northern Hainan. So this is still very much a significant threat for areas all along the southern coast. And if you're in any of these areas and have your preferences already up, don't take them down just yet. Keep them up until the storm passes through. Then once the storm has passed through and we have more certainty on, say, okay, yeah, it's definitely not hitting you, then you can take them down. You don't want to take them down prematurely, just in case the storm does come closer than you might expect. Now, this also has some implications for the track further west into, say, northern Vietnam. On the current Joint Typhoon Warning Center forecast, they're still taking a blend between the GFS and European models, showing this being a little bit further south. So as a result, it doesn't have much land interaction, and it's still a pretty strong typhoon here. You can see in that value, that's not too far off from super typhoon intensity as it comes offshore. And that would be potential for a fairly strong storm here coming into northern Vietnam, as the environment is still going to be favorable here for this. Although if it does come a little bit further north and be closer to, say, that intensity or the track guidance that I just showed you, this would be much more land interaction and we would have a lot more weakening as a result, and we could have a weaker system to deal with here in northern Vietnam. Alongside that, you also shift impacts entirely further north if it does come further north. There's a lot more uncertainty there, as you would expect, as we're a little bit further out from that, but just noting that for anyone watching in northern Vietnam or points further west in southern China. Now, we also have significant probabilities increasing now of tropical storm and typhoon force winds. You can see this is the tropical storm force wind probabilities from the GFS ensemble. I'm showing this to point out that, like I was talking about with areas like Hong Kong or northern Hainan, just because we are getting this track, in a place that might be further away from you all overall compared to yesterday, you still have significant odds of getting tropical storm force winds. In fact, in Hong Kong and northern Hainan, this yellow is 50% or higher. You still have very significant odds of getting those tropical storm force winds, which of course could be significant. That could be pretty strong, and that could cause, of course, some damage. Now, typhoon force winds are much more localized to where the system center comes in, but you can see these odds are increasing where we talked about for landfall, where models are trying to hone in, and you can see those odds are now increasing above 50% in parts of this coastline, and they'll continue to increase as we go more in time over the next day towards landfall. And also, I talked about yesterday, wind is not the only impact. We're also going to see a lot of rainfall with this system. This is the rainfall forecast in the GFS ensemble over the next week, and you can see widespread areas of 150 to 250 millimeters of rainfall, localized totals much higher than that, possibly exceeding 400 or 500 millimeters, especially where that inner core comes in. You can see sort of where that storm tracks on the ensemble mean here, and we could certainly get a lot of rainfall here in southern China as the system comes in. So stay safe in China as the system comes through. I'll try to have a video out tomorrow before landfall, but make sure your preparations are completed. If you don't have them completed yet, rush them to completion today. This is your last chance as this system continues to push your way. And hopefully we get more disruption than expected. But as of right now, we're looking at a very strong typhoon coming into southern China within the next day. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.